So hi, everybody. Welcome to the Million Person Project webinar on personal storytelling. I'm Heather Box, and I am the co-founder of the Million Person Project.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Julian Bosu-McQueen. I, too, am the co-founder of the Million Person Project.
And so thank you, everybody, for joining. I know a lot of you guys are just hopping on. And so I just wanted to let you know a little bit about what tonight is about, share a little bit of how we got into it, and then we'll get straight into the webinar. So the Million Person Project is a global project about love, storytelling, and connecting changemakers. And we work with changemakers all over the world, artists, activists, business people, teachers, farmers, and we support them in powerfully telling their personal story as it relates to what they're creating in the world. And the reason why we do this is because we believe that when you tell your personal story about what is driving you, when you tell your deeper why, that really creates a pathway for a connection with whoever you're speaking to. So that's what we'll get into today. And before we start, I just want to encourage everyone to speak up in the chat box. If questions come up for you guys throughout the program, go ahead and put your questions in there, and we'll be reviewing them at the end and answering questions at the end. And also, just in terms of volume, is the sound okay for all of you guys? Can you hear me? Can you just let me know in the chat that it's good to go? Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Sound is good. All right. Love hearing that. Awesome. How does Julian sound? Do you sound okay? A little harder to hear me. Okay, good to know.
Oh, good to know. Thank you. So we'll just adjust the mic a little. Okay.
Cool.
All right. So we wanted to introduce ourselves a little before we get into the webinar. So Julian, you go first.
All right. Yeah. So again, good evening, everybody. Julian Bosu-McQueen here. I'm really excited to be here. As Heather mentioned, we started the Million Person Project 5 years ago. My background that brought me to the Million Person Project is a bunch of stuff, but it largely came through my work in the climate movement at an organization called Green for All. And one of the cool things I got to do at Green for All was help to identify, coordinate, and support a network of organizers and activists and entrepreneurs, business people, community leaders, government leaders, that are all working in the realm of trying to create an inclusive green economy strong enough to lift people out of poverty. And so through that work, we were always trying to understand and implement ways to support really incredible leadership that people were showing across the country in cool projects. And stories just rose to the top as one of the ways in which that was super powerful. So that's a lot of what brought me to this work.
Yeah, and for me, I have really been searching for a way to be in connection with people my whole life. Connection is the reason why I'm here. And I've done, as a kid, I started to get overwhelmed with the problems in the world, like with the wars and with poverty. And the feeling that I had inside of me was this instinct to help. But the help that I was doing is a lot of times I was helping people who had never asked for help. And the help was really coming from a place of me feeling better about myself and better about the world. And it wasn't until I found personal storytelling that I really saw that telling your personal story and making space for someone else to tell their story, that is the foundation for a healthy partnership and for deep connection. And that is really what led me to start the Million Person Project. And the Million Person Project is a global project that creates connections around the world, that supports people in articulating what is most precious to them and being able to deliver that in a powerful way.
Yeah, and so you have my background of supporting leaders, and Heather really looking for ways to support connection and be in partnership with people. We both have a shared background where we were having the opportunity to travel to conferences all over the world. We've both been to the UN Climate Conference, tons of conferences around the United States, and we had the joy and the pleasure of meeting all these incredible people that were doing cool stuff in all, from all backgrounds. And we would show up, hang out, go to dinner, have the opportunity to kind of wrap out with folks. And in that process, we would really get to know who people were, and we would open up to each other, and we would highlight the real reasons and the real values that brought us to the work that we were doing. And it was so powerful. At the same time, we both had the experience of showing up the next day to the same person's speech that they were giving at the UN conference, and they had disappeared entirely. And it became something that was just about the facts and the figures and the graphs and the numbers, which are all important, but they disappeared, and it made it so that their work it was less impactful. And so part of the foundation of the Million Person Project was like, man, there's so many people doing great work. We believe in the power of stories to help that work be shared more effectively, and for those people to be more grounded in why they do the work and do the work better because of it. And so that's a big part of what came of how we got to the Million Person Project 5 years ago now.
Yeah, and when we met those people who were getting up on stage and sort of falling flat and focusing on the facts and figures only and not revealing themselves to the audience, when we asked them why they did that and why they weren't showing up with their story and in their passion, a lot of times they said, well, I don't know where to start when I want to tell my story. I'm not sure how to begin, just like, wow, like here's my, what, back when my grandparents were alive, or, there's a lot of anxiety around, like, am I going to overshare? How do I construct my story in a way that really connects? And so that's the curriculum that Julia and I developed, and we used the base curriculum of our one of our mentors, Marshall Gant, who teaches storytelling out of Harvard, as part of an organizing curriculum there. And we used that curriculum and built off of it to develop a way to support leaders in walking through a process to tell their personal stories in a powerful way. And that is what tonight's webinar is about.
So we're going to jump into it.
Yeah. So give me a minute here to set up my screen share with you guys so that I can start the webinar. And like I said before, if you have questions or comments during the webinar, please put them in the chat box and we'll get back to them as, at the end after our presentation. So, all right. So should be now that you guys can see our screen.
Let's get us.
One more second.
Cover over again.
One second, we're just working on one thing. Huh. All right, there we go. So welcome to this event, to the Million Person Project webinar. What we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to share the 5 steps to start telling your authentic story in a way that can really create connection and move any audience that you're speaking to. And we're also going to share with you some of the stories of people who have been out in the world doing this. Because one of the things that we know is that hearing about real world people who are actually doing this, that is what can really inspire other people to take the step. And then at the end, we're also going to tell you guys about a new online course that we're offering starting next year if you want to continue work on these 5 steps to telling your story. So being willing and able to powerfully tell your personal story is key to the success of your project.
And we believe to your personal liberation as well. So we honestly believe that being willing and able to powerfully tell your story is key to the success of your project. When you reach in and touch what is precious to you, what's really motivated you, and share from that place, the connections you make when you're speaking, be it with collaborators, donors, colleagues, whoever, they're really much more meaningful.
And I know we introduced ourselves a little bit when we were live, but we wanted to share with you a little bit more about it. We started the Million Person Project 5 years ago. And since then, we've trained over 1,500 storytellers from 66 different countries. So we're just on a major mission. And we spent a lot of time abroad working with artists and activists and social entrepreneurs all across the world. We spent, a month on the ground in Vietnam, South Africa, Uganda, Brazil, Turkey, all across the US. And what we've seen is that everybody needs this support. People really need the support to get out and be themselves in a big and bold way. And it's been such an honor. I mean, it's a dream for me to be able to get to do this. And there are people who really hold space for both Julian and I, for us as in our leadership and in our stories. And for Julian, his mentor is CNN commentator. You guys probably seen him lately with the crazy election going on, Van Jones. And my mentor is the amazing Raw Goddess, who is an entrepreneurial coach. And like I said before, Marshall Gantz is like our storytelling guru, and we're a member of his Leading Change Network based out of Harvard.
Yeah, so if you want to know more about the roots of our work, definitely check out the Leading Change Network.
Yeah, and so however you guys got here, whether it's from seeing our stuff on Huffington Post or Ms. Magazine or Foreign Policy in Focus, or if you are part of the Stories Are Power interview series, welcome. Or if you're a friend, welcome, and we're really glad that you're here.
So your story has power, and it is time to tell it. You may have noticed the world has gone a little crazy lately, and around the Million Person Project headquarters, since the election, our phones have been ringing off the hook. People are calling us and saying, okay, I am ready to go big. I think we just saw in a very real way what's possible if we continue to play small in our leadership. If we continue to step aside because we aren't ready or we aren't sure, one thing is certain, that someone else will step in and take that space. So it's time to take some risks and to be your bold self, to get out of your comfort zone and take your leadership up a notch through stories.
And this is one of my favorite quotes, and someone whose work I follow really closely, and this is Brene Brown, and she says, owning your story is the bravest thing that you'll ever do. So we're not saying that
we talk about this as being so critical to your personal liberation, and also so important to the conversations we're all having in our culture and our society politically. This is Ben Okri, a Nigerian author and poet. He said that people are as healthy and confident as the stories they tell themselves. 6 storytellers can make nations sick. Without stories, we would go mad. Life would lose its orientation. Stories can conquer fear, They can make the heart larger.
So the question that most people are asking us at the Million Person Project is, how do I get out there and feel totally confident and grounded and authentic every time I share? And so that's a question I want to ask you guys. What would that feel like if every time you got the opportunity, it was a yes? Maybe you were nervous, but it was a yes, and you knew that you were going to get up there and knock it out of the park completely.
And the truth of the matter is, up to this point, you may not have felt that. Raise your hand if any of this sounds familiar. When you share, do you ever feel scattered or unclear about where you're going or what you're saying? Do you feel frantic about what people thought about what you say? You jump off stage and immediately you're picking it apart. Do you ever feel worried that you overshared, or perhaps you kind of disappeared, you showed up in a small way? Or do you ever feel annoyed that you never make the time to show up fully in your power? Those are some of the things that we hear from folks.
And so what we're going to do right now is we want you guys all to get your notebook, get a pen, because we're going to just dive into exactly where we start in the first hour of working with our clients. So we're going to go to the 5 steps to owning your personal story and being able to confidently and authentically share it. And our promise for you out of this workshop, out of the hour that you are spending with us, is that we will show you just what you need to do to build your story and move any audience to action. And we're confident that we can deliver this because this is exactly what we do with our clients.
So how do our clients do it? It's pretty simple, and it's they follow the 5 steps that we're going to get into. They follow the steps that we guide them in exploring and honing their personal story so they can effectively and authentically share it with the world.
But here's the obstacle that almost everybody comes to us with. People come, there's the thousands of people that we've talked to about their stories in the last 5 years. Most people fall on one extreme of the spectrum. They either feel like I don't have a story, or they feel like my story is way too sad, too personal. There's no way that I'm sharing it publicly. And we have yet to find anybody who that's true for. Yes, maybe your story is sad, but in those moments that defined you, those are the moments where your power was built. And sharing that with your audience in relationship to the project that you're working on in the world can be really, really powerful. But the obstacles are real. I understand the conundrum. And the question is, how come our clients don't let the obstacles stop?
It's because we walk them through this process. And what the process does is it helps you to move any audience. It helps you to be inspiring and authentic in your leadership. It definitely can be hugely supportive in helping you recruit donors or ideal clients or collaborators, partners, organizations to work with your organization, all of those things. And I think most importantly, ultimately, it helps you to feel more connected to your own power.
Your story is your power. And we see this where we want to, like we said, we want to share with you a couple of examples of people who have taken the risk and told their personal story in a really bold way. So the first one is Anurag Gupta. He runs a company called Be More America, and they do implicit bias training and massive research on implicit bias and how it affects hospitals and policing and all kinds of different industries. And he says things when he says what Be More America is about. He says things like, it's about ending racism in our lifetime. And when he says that, he obviously gets some curious looks like, okay, yeah, who are you? People have been trying that for, centuries. And until he was willing to really tell his story, no one really got why it was his issue. So people were slightly skeptical. Then he made the very, very, very brave decision to not just tell his story, but to tell his most vulnerable, voice-shaking story that he had never told outside of his closest group of friends. And that story was about how he had considered suicide after a lifetime of internalized racism. And he didn't just share about the experience, he shared about the values that guided him and the belief systems that got shaped during his lifetime that led him up to that 7th floor window. And then he shared about the values, the experiences that ultimately made him make the decision to step off and to step back and to recommit to his life. And when he started sharing his story, his impact exploded. In 1 year, he won the Echoing Green Fellowship and the Nathan Cummings Fellowship, giving him over $150,000 in seed funding to launch this project to the next level. And most importantly, revealing himself and his deeper motivation was a big part of him owning his power and saying, all right, I'm going to do this. and I'm going to be seen as me, and I'm going to go big with it.
And this is Caledonia Curry. She's known as Swoon. She's a really incredible and also incredibly well-renowned artist. And her work is often murals, and it's outdoors. She has her start as a street artist. So she already had a big platform to get her message out. And generally, when she speaks at major museums across the world, she was sharing about her work, but she was not really sharing her true story, who she is, and the deeper story around why she does what she does. She spent many years hiding her story because she just felt like it was too big of a risk to really get it out there. So when she made the step to really share her story, she worked with Tether, and she worked with the Million Person Project, and her story was one of family addiction and mental illness, and she has this message around forgiveness and healing. Everything changed for her. She was thinking of it just as this practice, like, okay, I need to practice getting my story out there more, and practice once and see how it feels. But her vulnerability and honesty inspired the room that she was in. She ended her talk with a standing ovation, and that day, a CNN editor chased her down after her talk, asked her to turn her talk into an op-ed, which ran on CNN.com. When it ran, it was shared thousands and thousands of times, and now she's seen as a go-to speaker on this idea and the subject of forgiveness, reconciliation, and healing, and is doing that work along with her art all over the world.
So how do you get started? That's what we're going to do right now. So get your pens ready, and in the chat box, if any of this is relating to you, if you're willing to share what your biggest obstacle to personal storytelling is, or any questions that come up for you when you start to share your story, feel free to put that in the chat box. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to walk you through these 5 steps that we've been referring to. And this is just the beginning, so we would love for each of you to commit to spending some more time on this once the webinar is over, and to use this as tools.
Yeah, and just another quick note there, like this hour is about giving you the steps to do, and we'll kind of let you know how much time you want to spend on each piece, but it's really about leaving you with the instructions that you can take and use in your own time.
Yeah. So step 1, create a life map. So this is a life map. What you can see in the background here, these drawings, this is a life map that includes the influential people in your life, the turning points, the values and the events that shape those values, moments of challenge, and moments of celebration. And so what I want you guys to do right now is to just take a minute to write down 2 influential people in your life and 2 major turning points. And this is a process that, coming out of this webinar, I'd love for each of you to spend at least 30 minutes creating this map and to commit to sharing it with one other person.
And just to say a word about this, so this is where, in many ways, this is where our process starts. Where we lead to is, really crafting a very compelling and focused story about your experiences as it relates to your work. But we like to take a step back and really look at all of it. And I think a lot of times when we think about why we do our work, a bunch of really things that, some things will pop up very quickly. And we find that it's not necessarily those first things that pop up that are actually at the root of why you do what you do. And so this life map helps you to unearth a bunch of the other things in your life that have happened that upon initial reflection, you might not see the connection. But when you take an opportunity to sort of lay it all out, you start to see those connections. You see arrows in this life map on your screen. Those arrows start to point different ways and the connections come to the fore.
Yeah, and so, one of the most common things that we hear is like, oh yeah, but this piece is too personal to share. The life map is not a time to create, to edit. What we want you to do is we want you to get it down on paper for yourself and to really explore those things that have made you who you are and that have shaped your belief system.
Ooh. All right, so we're starting with our life map. And again, we have it up there, Influential People Turning Point. Really, we're starting to look at our life and reflect on the values that guide the way we are and who we are. So step 2 is identifying the values that come out of that life map. So step 2, identify the top 3 values that drive you. Now, again, you've taken some time at home, you've done your life map, you've looked at it, you've reflected it, you've shared it, because a lot of times those, you will get some really good insights that are revealed when you actually share it out loud. So make sure you share it. And now you have a better sense of some of the values that drive you. So what you're going to do for this next exercise is you're going to pick 3 values that are important to you. And these are values that you see throughout your life map. Okay, that one keeps coming up again and again. Grab that one. You'll see some of the values that you see, the beliefs that you think are foundational to who you are. Pick 3 of them. Don't overthink it. Write them down on a page. And one at a time, this exercise is about really investigating, are those values the ones that are really at the core of who you are? So how does exercise work? If you've chosen 3 values, we're going to take one. I'm going to ask you a series of 7 questions, and you're going to rate. Actually, it's going to be, I'm going to make 7 statements, and you're going to rate it from 1 to 10, how true that statement is for you. So 1 would mean, that statement doesn't really resonate for me. It doesn't feel very true. 10 would be like, oh yeah, that's as true as it gets. That's exactly how I feel. So that's this next exercise. And what we're doing is we're starting to see, what are the values that you hold most dear? And where we'll go with it is, how do those values influence your work? How do they influence the decisions you've made professionally or in the passion project that you're working on? So I'm going to just walk through these questions slowly. And again, this is something for you to take home and do. I want to remind everybody that we will send you a recording of this webinar so that you can grab these questions from there as well. So the first question, I keep saying question, forgive me. The first statement, my most treasured accomplishments have to do with living this value. That's the first statement. The second statement, the time I remember feeling most trapped has to do with not living this value. The third statement, I am most thrilled when people compliment me for displaying this value. The fourth statement, if people strongly advise me not to advocate this value, I do it anyway. The fifth value, those people I admire most have, or at least seem to have, this value. The sixth statement, there was a time I really failed to protect this value and it still haunts me. And the seventh statement is the best decisions I've made for myself supported this value. So that is a way to sort of stress test the values that seem to be rising to the top for you in terms of what have really inspired you. And again, that exercise is you pick one value, you use those 7 statements for each of the values, and then based on where you score, you know, between 1 and 10, you can add that up and get a sense of, this one is actually seems to guide my decisions more than these other 2. That's the idea. I want to make a quick note that that exercise comes from a book called Bury Your Heart in Conference Room B. It's a really powerful book by a guy named Stan Slapp. Bury Your Heart in Conference Room B. It's about leadership, authentic and vulnerable leadership. And you know, his clients are Fortune 500 companies, but really powerful tools. So Bury Your Heart in Conference Room B is where that exercise comes from.
And then once you sort of identified the journey that has influenced you to be who you are and identified the values that are driving you, it's time for you to determine who your audience is and what your goal is. So what are the kinds of projects that you guys are working on? Is it your business? Is it your nonprofit? Is it, you know, in community meetings? Who is your audience and what is your goal? So what we want you to do now is to write down on your paper who you think it is that might need or want to hear your story. Who is it write down what you know about that person. So when you think about your audience, what is it that you know about them? An example might be people who are closed-minded, who are feeling closed-minded and fearful after the election. And you might be giving them tools for how to, open their minds and to continue to work with people who are on the other side of the political spectrum from them. Maybe you're a mom and it's about new moms who are feeling overwhelmed and unsure with the journey that they've just embarked on. Maybe it's potential funders for your project. And what you know about them is that they're feeling really fired up to make a change and have an influence right now. So you need to identify some of the things that you know about the audience and whatever values that you know that they hold. And that's really important. And so then the next thing is, what is your goal? And you want to get as specific as possible. And you want to get specific about two things, which is, how do you want them to feel after they hear your talk? And what action or act do you want them to take? So people always go broad here. Don't do that. Get really, really specific. So an example could be, I want potential donors to feel really, really connected to me and to the passion that's driving to me. I want them to feel like they can make a difference. I want them to feel inspired that we're on the right track. And the action that I want them to take is to commit to giving $2,500 by December 15th to your nonprofit or to your cause or whatever. So this is where every single person needs to start. Once they've done the internal work, it's now time to think about your audience and specifically what your goal is.
All right, cool. So we've worked on our life map. We've taken the opportunity to pull out and stress test some of the values that we see revealed in our life story. And now we have clarity around who our audience is and what we want them to do. Step 4 is pulling out a thread that explains how the values were formed and how that relates to the work you do today. So as I mentioned earlier, we start broad with the life map. Now we're starting to hone in. We're starting to connect our life stories and the values that are revealed through that story to the work that we do. We call this, in our work, the story of self. It's the first part of a three-part, of a story in 3 parts that was codified, developed by Marshall Gantt. It's called the public narrative, the story of self, the story of us, and the story of now. We'll look at that in just a second. But the step 4 is really starting to dig into that. What drives me to do what I do? What are the values that drive me to do my work? And how do you highlight those values? You do it through story. So what are the experiences that I've had in my life? Who are the people who have influenced me? When was the time that a value was really tested? And that was the day I said, you know what, I never want to do that when I'm given the opportunity, right? Or maybe it was like you see somebody stand up for a value you hold dear and you say, that's how I want to be when I grow up, right? These are the things that are revelatory and really help people to understand who you are and why you do what you do. And as we noted with our examples earlier, it's revealing that helps people to be clear about why you do what you do, and through that clarity, be more willing and able to join in supporting you in whatever form that might take. So step 4 is when you really start to do that and pull out that story. And that really leads directly into step 5, which is what I just mentioned, which is putting it into this story in 3 parts. The story of self, the story of us, and the story of now. Again, Marshall Gantt is the architect of this. I know he would say it, I've heard him say it. It's a very ancient technique, but it's a really, I think, thoughtful and brilliant way to organize it. I'm going to read through what the story of self and the story of us and the story of now are briefly, just to give you a sense. And I will say very quickly, like, this is the heart and soul of the work that we do, and it is also, when we do our workshops, this is the bulk of it. So we don't have time to dig deep into this in the hour, but at least you'll leave with a sense of what it is. So the story of self expresses the values and experiences that call each person to do the work they do. When did you first care about being heard? When did you learn that you were concerned about an issue? Why? Talk about real life experiences and how it shaped you in the context of your project, your issue, or topic. Identify the choices and the turning points in your journey to action. That's the story of self. Why do you do what you do? The story of us is critically important because it connects your values and your experience to that of your audience. We don't want to just connect because of the work. We want to connect because of the values that are the foundation of the work we do. So the story of us is a chance to identify and highlight shared vision and values with whomever you're communicating with. This is your chance to make sure everyone in the room feels as if they're part of the same community or we. Use the story of us to highlight a similarity of purpose and passion with your audience. That's part 2 of the story of us. And finally, the story of now, pretty straightforward. The story of now is your past. The story of now articulates the urgent challenge in specific detail. Why do you need their help? Why do you need it now? It also includes the description of the path that the audience can take to help achieve the goals that you've outlined. And the story of now includes an act, which calls the audience to specific action that they can do to achieve your collective mission. And that collective mission upholds your collective values. The story of now finishes by painting a picture of what could be if your audience joins you, what your vision is for the world, that big, inspiring vision. So that's the story of now.
Yeah, so those are the 5 steps that we recommend each one of you taking when you're going out to develop your story to share with the world. So what are some of you guys doing that hopped on this call? Are you getting ready for a TED Talk? Are you getting to speak on a panel? Do you just want to be able to more powerfully communicate with your team? What is it that you guys are doing, and why is it that you want to be able to powerfully tell your story? My sense from seeing the people who signed up is that you guys are up to some really big things in the world, and that your story and you being a powerful communicator is part of that. So the question is, why would you follow these 5 steps? Isn't it easier to just sort of stay safe and stay in the background? And the answer is because telling your story can make your message and your business explode. And we wanted to share with you guys a couple more examples of how we have seen that happen in the world. I know that everybody on this webinar and listening to this webinar has been in the audience when someone is just holding court, when someone is just really, really powerfully presenting what it is that they're talking about. And it's like you can't get it out of your mind. That's how it's possible for everyone. You don't have to be some amazing, naturally gifted public speaker. It's great when you are. Julian is a great natural public speaker. He speaks, on stages with thousands of people in jumbotrons. Like, I am very, very, very nervous when I speak, but I have worked on it over the years, and what I've always been is willing to take risks and to listen to my mentors and to try new things, and it has really served me well. So we wanted to share with you a couple examples quickly of how people have told their story.
Cool. So this is a picture of Reshma Sajani. And Reshma is the leader of an organization called Girls Who Code. She has been for a number of years. She was recently given the opportunity to do a TED Talk. So Reshma is somebody who's already established in her leadership, really strong leader, but this was a step up. This was not a TEDx, this was TED Main Stage, a very, huge opportunity. She worked with the Million Person Project and some other folks. She put together a really strong and powerful story that talked about why we need to teach girls bravery and not perfection. And when it was released from TED within the first day, it had 500,000 views to date. Just a couple months later, it has 2.7 million views and counting. And that has meant a tremendous amount for her work. That's meant a tremendous amount in terms of who knows and understands the work of Girls Who Code, and in terms of people who are calling on her and her leadership. So we're really, she's someone who we were super impressed with to begin with. And to see that happen was just really inspiring. And she's still reaping the benefits of that step up in her leadership.
And then there are people who have been successfully doing their work, but for years and years and years, but they have never told their personal story about why. And Barb Schmidt is one of those people. So in this last summer, she started working with us and doing our one-on-one coaching, and then in September of this year, she was invited to present to a pitch panel. And she told her personal story that was really, really, she's never told it outside of really close people in her life, and it was very, very risky for her to do that. And when she told the story, I was in the audience. It was so amazing to get to be in the audience. You could have just heard a pin drop the entire time she was telling her story. And then when it ended and we were waiting for the panelists to respond, they were just silent for a minute. And then they said, do exactly what you did over and over again. And whatever you're going for, you'll get there. And then they offered to introduce her to their book agent. And it was just incredible. And so today she started working on her memoir so that her 4 million meditation followers can really learn that deep personal story. And for story, there's so many people in the world that need to hear her story. And I'm so glad that she took the personal risk to do that, because it's going to be so worth it. It already has transformed so much stuff in her life just from the group that we were in there. So it can be risky, but for me, it's always worth it. And then here's Kyle Parsons. He's the founder of IndoSoul, and he had a TEDx, and he's great. And but he didn't, vulnerability, sharing your personal story. He was like, I just want to talk about my work and surfing and the environment. I don't want to share too much about me. And so working with him was really interesting and exciting, because he was getting to make the connections of what in his life brought him to these things. And since doing his TED Talk, he's now seen as a speaker that can be a go-to speaker, and he's even getting paid for his gigs, which is a really exciting step in his leadership.
And this is Jessica Norwood. She's a really incredible person who's doing work around building wealth in the African-American community, and has worked with Black farmers from all over the place and working on new and innovative ways to build wealth. And she said, since my time working with the Million Person Project, I've spoken on national stages every month. Doors open that I could not have imagined, and I won the National Fellowship of Nathan Cummings Foundation. It's been a beautiful ride that has helped me to see that I didn't need anything more than myself, my story, my truth, in order to be boldly great in the world. And we're so excited to be working with Jessica. And I have to do a quick plug for our work with both Jessica and Anurag. Both of them worked on their Nathan Cummings Foundation's presentations. Both of them received that fellowship, which is what, $100,000 fellowship. So really honored to have gotten to work with them, and proud of them for all their incredible work being the root of their fellowship, and grateful and proud that we were able to help them in some way with our story.
And so what we want to ask you guys is if you guys will be our next success story. And so we want to invite you, two things, is we want you, for me, this is about shifting culture. This is about how do we create a culture that embraces more of who we are. Your story is specifically part of that. And so what we're trying to do, especially since the election and since so many people are coming to us and wanting their support in getting their story out to the world, is to develop programs. That's why we're starting to do these online classes, is to develop programs where we can reach more people. Because right now, what I do is I work intensively with people over the course of 5 months on their personal story. And I work with them to get it out in huge ways. And so I only work with 20 people a year. But now what we want to do is we're developing a program that's starting next year that's going to help go way deeper into these steps and get, get something that you can tune in from at home. It's a 3-month home study program. It starts in February. And the home study program will support you in going deep into each step, into building your story to be used out in the world.
It's also, I think, one of the really cool parts about it's going to provide accountability. So there's going to be live coaching twice a month that you can get customized support from us, and we'll be bringing in other experts in the realm to support your story, and you'll be and you will be part of a community that can help with accountability on how you make sure you're not just seeing and understanding the 5 steps, but taking them to get your story out there.
So who is this program not for? It's not for people who aren't willing to be open and vulnerable. And it's not for people who are just interested in storytelling because it's the new hot thing and Harvard Business Review says, like, this is the key to closing deals.
It is for someone who wants to be wildly successful and be successful within their authenticity. It's someone who believes their story has value, even though they may doubt it, or you may doubt it, as we all do at times, I think. It's someone who wants to shift our culture to be more open and accepting. It's for someone who wants to take a big step up in their leadership, as we saw with Reshma. And it's for people who need accountability to finally tell their story.
So the home study training program is step-by-step video lessons released twice a month online and weekly worksheets and homework. And that value for just the home study program is $1,500. And then the accountability piece, it's 90 days of support. You'll have 45-minute group accountability calls twice a month. You'll have an accountability partner within the program to set and track goals with. And we'll also have a Facebook group where you can get your answers, your questions answered, and also share parts of your story as tests before you go out to an audience. And so the total cost of the total value of the program is $3,500. And so the question is, like, what is it costing you to rush to talk at the last minute, to have a file folder of half completed blogs and stories and articles, to not show up in your full power? A lot of us are asking ourselves these questions of, I know I want to share my story, but I don't know where to start. I don't know, like we're seeing in the question in the chat, I don't know the balance between being open and oversharing. These are all things that this is what we spend our life doing, is working with people to create talks that make them feel exactly like themselves while being powerful messengers for their work. And so they can come off stage and say, I was in full integrity with who I am. So the question is, where would your leadership be if you took yourself seriously, your story seriously, and you invested to take it to the next level?
If all this program did was to help you refine your story and start sharing it, that would be awesome. But can you see the impact that would have on your project?
So the program is valued at $3,500, like I said, but we're selling it today for $1,200, and you can make that in 4 payments. And so you can get started today, right now, by making one payment of $300, or you can save and pay in full with $997. And our guarantee is that if you participate fully in this program and you don't get the clarity or motivation to actually tell your story with the world, we'll give you your money back.
That's right, money back guarantee.
Yeah, but I mean, it's because we know that this people need support to do this work. We've been told, our culture tells us so strongly that we need to be professional, we need to refine ourselves, we can't bring the personal into the office, all this stuff. And that it's, we get stuck in shame, we get stuck in hiding. And so we know what it takes to support someone in stepping out. It's not always easy, but it's what we live. It is what I live for, is watching people stand up and stand in their truth in a way that, like they've never before. And so we have 3 bonuses for the first 10 people who sign up for this program. And we have 2 people who have signed up, so we have 8 more spots for these bonuses. So
cool. So the first bonus is getting a $500 gift certificate with us, the Million Person Project, to use on your future workshop or coaching package. And for those who are watching live tonight, this weekend, December 9th and 10th, we have a 2-day intensive workshop in San Francisco. The cost of that workshop is $500. If you wanted to use this bonus to come to the workshop this weekend, we would welcome you with open arms. If you are not watching live tonight or you're not in the Bay Area, that's a $500 gift certificate that you can use for future work. That could be a workshop in your area. It could be another online learning opportunity or coaching with one of us.
the second bonus that we'll give to the 8 people who sign up tonight is 2 additional months of coaching. So we'll have those 45-minute calls for 2 more months. And so that's 5 months total.
The third bonus is you'll get a VIP one-on-one coaching session with myself or Heather or both to set up your goals and jumpstart your program. I think that's a really great one to get you just situated before the program starts so that you're really able to get the most out of it from moment one.
Yeah, and we can do that call next week. I mean, we want to get you guys started. If you're feeling motivated right now, we want to use that energy and get you going.
In fact, we have a call with one of our participants next week.
Yeah. So the offer is the home study course, which is the videos twice a month, and the Facebook accountability and the twice a month calls. And for the first 8 people who sign up, it's a $500 gift certificate to be used by you for a future workshop, 2 additional months of coaching, and like we said, the VIP coaching sessions with one of us.
So you have 2 choices. You can keep doing what you're doing without accountability, or take the opportunity right now to invest in your future and let 2017 be a truly incredible year for your leadership and for your work.
Yeah, and this is my mantra, which is that your truth will set us free, that your story has so much power, and why are you withholding that from the world? So this is the link that you can use right now to sign up for the program and to secure the bonuses. And you should have also gotten an email from us, or will be getting one any minute now, that gives you the link so that you can be one of the 8 people to get the bonuses. And we really are glad that you joined us today, and we're so happy to be, we're such old school people. We do everything face-to-face and such long format. It's nice for us to be able to reach people like from all over the country and all over the world on these webinars. And it's a little awkward because we can't see you guys and we don't know what you're all about, but we hope that this is of value to you. And one of the things that I want to say is that if this webinar is as far as you go with your story, or with the support around your story, we really want you to commit to at least setting aside 1 hour to reflect on this, to do your life map, to share it with someone, to start to think about your values and your audience, and to review this, and to really commit to showing up as more of yourself in the world. Because we really have one life to live, and we are this unique person. We have to let ourselves shine. And some of letting ourselves shine means sharing things that aren't that comfortable sometimes, or it means doing the work, with yourself or with support to get ready to share with the world. So thank you guys so much. Let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, we had one question in the chat box earlier.
Yeah.
And we're ready for more. So if you have a question, please go ahead and drop it in there. Now we have about 5 minutes. We'll answer our question. If there are no further questions, then we'll move on. And thank you for your time.
Yeah, and so we're going to come back live now. We're going to stop the screen share, and hopefully I'll be able to get back onto Zoom. So
there we are. Look at that.
Yay!
Oh, we made it. So
let's hear your questions. we have this one question here from Effie, which is, what she's been thinking about is how can one find the balance and not be too personal yet authentic to your vulnerability of being open while genuine, but also self-protective in sharing my story. So how do you sort of balance the openness and vulnerability of sharing what it is that drives us while not oversharing? So this is a really, really important question. And this is why we started the Million Person Project, is because you can't just send someone out in the world and say, okay, go share your deepest truth with the world. Because our deepest truth makes our voice shake. We get super sweaty and we're like, oh, I can't tell my story. Like, where do I start? I'm going to reveal things about me that people are going to judge me on. Like, I've spent my life hiding the story. Hell no, I'm not going to tell it. So the first step is to allow the truth of your story to exist for you. So that's what the life map is about. And being willing to share it with someone close in your life, share it in a place that's safe, like a group program, like with the Million Person Project, in a workshop. That first, let your story just exist. And let the vulnerability be. And who cares if you cry when you're telling it, or who cares, whatever, who cares if you tell a really dry story and you can't access the vulnerability yet. You just need to be authentic to where you are right then. And then that's when crafting the narrative really becomes key, is what part. Sometimes people, some people have stories where they're not willing or ready, or it's not strategic or smart or safe for them to tell their personal story all out. So there's ways in which you can use narrative to talk about the values underneath those stories without having to tell every tiny detail. And so these are the kind of things that we work on with the people in our workshops and in our coaching.
Yeah, and I would just reiterate that in order to do what Heather suggested, which is allude to and connect to values without necessarily doing a deep dive and sharing every detail, you still need to understand those connections, and you still need to be able to hold those yourself and feel that connection. And then there's ways to craft artfully in a way that you can still feel safe, but also feel like you're revealing what you need to reveal.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing that I want to say is the question that comes up a lot is about, like, how does my story relate to my work? Sometimes people are like, I work for a community bank. I don't know how my personal story of, my parents getting divorced and me finding my voice and because I was bullied or whatever, I don't know how that has to do with my work at the community bank. The key is finding the values that drive your leadership. Because it's not always like, your story isn't always about living by a river and now you're environmental. It's the values that call you to leadership. And so that's what we really work on with the Million Person Project, and that's what we'll work on in this 2017 Home Study program.
Yeah. And with that,
yeah.
I think if there are no further questions, we're right around. We just clicked over to 7 o'clock. So Heather said it, but we're so grateful to you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for your time. It means so much to us. We hope that you can join us for our program. Make sure to check out our website for all of the different offerings we have. And feel free to reach out to us via our website, email, Facebook. We're always glad to talk about this stuff, whether you're in a program or not. So hit us up, and thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.